Live. We are live. Okay. We are here on I Love Being Sober, and I'm here with Aaron Huey. Super grateful. It's an amazing day, and we are both going to try to figure out how to share this live broadcast to our personal pages so that, okay, let me see here. Let me do this. And it's a beautiful day in Arizona. I got up at 4 o'clock and I did my morning routine. My morning routine includes breath work, prayer, meditation, a gratitude list, red light therapy, and then I went over to F45, which is my new favorite gym these days is F45. Shout out to F45. Super fun, super hard. I sweat. I work hard. It's fun. The energy is fun. And so if you're looking for a new workout, F45s are they're all over Phoenix and Scottsdale. And I think they're all over the country. I think they started in Australia, but that's not what this show is about. So I'm here with Aaron Huey. My name's Tim Westbrook. I love being sober. The name of the show, I Love Being Sober. And today we're going to talk about parenting teens that struggle, which is Aaron Huey's, that's his niche. And Aaron is an internationally known lecturer on archetypal imagery, body language, and martial arts, as well as the founder and president of Fire Mountain Programs. And since 2004, has run kids camps, teen camps, and family programming. In 2009, he and his wife, Christine, opened a residential mental health and dependency recovery treatment center for teens ages 12 to 17 in Estes Park, Colorado. Fire Mountain Residential Treatment Center was recently named one of the top 50 healthcare providers in the United States. He facilitates the powerful parenting event, Parenting Teens That Struggle, and is the host of Colorado's #1 parenting podcast, Beyond Risk and Back, which is a mental health news radio network's third highest rating show internationally. He is also a parent coach for parents of kids at risk, a teen addiction interventionist, and a very happy husband and father of 2 young adults. Welcome, Aaron. So good to see you this morning.
Thanks, Tim. I'm honored to be here, and I'm going to shorten that bio.
It was good stuff. I think it's important for people to learn that about you. And I guess we can start by just tell us what it was like for you as a kid growing up.
Yeah, I grew up in Longmont, Colorado, a great little town, a pretty diverse culture, excuse me, and hardworking dad, hardworking mom, 2 younger brothers. But my dad, when kind of the big tell right out of the gate is that my dad is not my biological father. I never met my biological father with any type of legitimacy or coherency, which means I lived with him for like 2 weeks when I was, less than a year old. So I was one of those kids who grew up without a father, but I had a great dad. But my mom and my dad, both very progressive, enough traditional values and hardworking and bootstrapping and honesty and integrity, and some really liberal parenting ideas on, really helping me and my younger brothers, very fair parents. And I really struggled. I really struggled with being bullied. I struggled with, feeling like to quote the old Fight Club thing, that if our fathers are our image of God and our fathers don't want us, we have to assume God doesn't like us. And that was really very much part of my childhood, not understanding why he wouldn't reach out, but having a surrogate daddy that was amazing didn't change the wound that was underneath all of it. So it went from bullying to starting to use marijuana at a very young age, risky behavior. And that kept growing. I did go to acting school. I was diagnosed with ADHD. Yeah, go ahead.
How many brothers do you have? Just brothers?
2 younger brothers. Yeah.
So you were the oldest of 3, and you said you grew up without a dad, but you had the greatest father.
I grew up without a father, a bio father, but I had the greatest dad.
And when did he step into the picture?
He adopted me when I was 4.
Okay. So right out of the gates. Okay. Pretty much.
Pretty much out of the gate. And it was when my younger brother was born. He got two boys at once. So my younger brother Craig was born, and he adopted me at the same time. So that was kind of him taking on the whole experience, which is great. He did an amazing job. The same liquor that was in the cabinet when I was a kid is probably in their cabinet now. I just don't think they know half of that liquor is water because of me. So you know,
Uh, I know that
and
trick.
yeah, and the drugs and the alcohol was primarily experimental until my first year of acting school out in Pasadena, California, where I was sexually assaulted by my roommate, my best friend, and that set me down a path of a lot. Just a lot of things came from that experience and through that experience. And the biggest thing was the desire to just be happy. I'd spent a lot of childhood unhappy, not with my family, just unhappy. I was just unhappy. And that was the tipping point. And that's where the drugs started my everyday habit, mainly marijuana. I tried LSD a few years into my drug experience, and man, that was coming home to something. That was me saying, with this one act I can be gone all day and I don't have to be here.
Yeah.
Fast forward.
How old were you when you went to acting school?
18, after high school.
You were 18 years old. Okay, so before 18 years old in high school, were you just experimenting with drugs and alcohol?
Yeah, pretty much. Just sneaking it here and there, taking sips every now and then. Nothing really landed. I mean, I started smoking pot when I was 12, but it was not consistent until I was around 18. That's when it became the everyday gig. That's when I was practicing doing it. Well, I got to go take a shower. I better get high. Well, I got to go, do some homework. I got to get high. That's when it really landed there.
So for parents out there, because this is mainly for parents, right? Parenting teens that struggle.
Right.
What is the telltale sign that you're headed down the wrong path? Like, for you, looking at your situation and based upon your experience, what's the telltale sign that your son or daughter is headed down the wrong path when they're
Yeah, and I have to say, like, the bullying that took place in school, I hid from my parents. I have to say, because there's so much that kids and teens can hide from parents, what has to be the telltale sign is what is truly the first gateway, and that's the trauma, whether it's the big T or the little t. So you've got to know as a parent that any one of these traumas, a big T or a little t, can create a direct path to a maladaptive coping strategy. So if there's a divorce, if there's an absent parent, if there's the three big ones, the assault, abandonment, and abuse, there is a path. Now, parents are going to miss stuff. I have two grown kids, and we look back and we have conversations, and I'm like, damn, I missed that one. How did I miss that one? So you've got to know what the big T traumas and the little T traumas are. And that a little T trauma for one kid can be a big T trauma for another kid.
right.
So that's the gateway. It is that if there's something that's going to cause pain on a daily basis, when you remember it, think about it, get reminded of it, then you're dealing with something that if this child is not provided a healthy coping strategy, they will create a maladaptive one to compensate for the misery that they're going through on the inside. And that's exactly what I did. I'm one of those kids who had such amazing, wonderful parents that it didn't make sense that I was really hurt by the one that was missing. That missing parent had been replaced. I had upgraded. I was on system 2.5 when my original was a 1.0, right?
Yeah.
So of course the system's operating, and of course it's functioning better. It wasn't. The bottom line truth is, when I was sober, I was sad. And when I was high, I was happy. And so as I became a daily pot smoker, as I moved into my 20s, and this thing became the focus of my life. I had a kid, but marijuana was the focus. And everything else created an opportunity for me to continue to get high, because when I was sober, I was sad. So you could not logically convince me that I should be sober, because when I was
Yeah.
sober, I was so sad I was suicidal. Why would you sit there and try to talk me into that?
Okay, now going back to the little T versus the big T. Tell us
Yeah.
what's the what is a big T and what's the little T? And I know and I understand it's different for each people, right?
Most definitely.
What it might be a big T for one person and a little T for someone else, and
Yeah.
vice versa.
So let's look at abandonment, abuses, and assaults. Whether the assaults are sexual or physical or emotional, those are instant big T's, right? A parent abandons you, or you're adopted. Assaults I just talked about, and then addiction is another one, where you've got a parent who's an addict.
Yeah.
Grandpa lives with you and he's drunk by 9 a.m. every day. Those are big T's. The other big T's that we're noticing, that mental health care and addiction recovery care is noticing, is the epigenetics. That if great grandpa had a drug problem and it changed the DNA, that DNA change is being passed down epigenetically. If great grandma was in the Holocaust, it changed her DNA and it's being passed down. That's epigenetics, and they're tracing family trauma 12 generations deep. So we are dealing with traumas, and those could be little T's or big T's, right? That are just being passed down in your DNA. So those are some of the big T's. Little T's could be a divorce, although that could really hit someone deeply. Little T's could be you got bullied in middle school. I mean, who didn't like it? but
Yeah.
but it affects people differently. That one hit me really, really hard. It doesn't. Other people got bullied and moved on from it. I still struggle with it. So there's a, ask me why martial arts, outdoor survival, and emergency medicine are my three hobbies. Like, what do I think is going to happen? Well, pretty much what's happening here in 2020, but I still have those triggers I got to be in touch with. So big T's and little T's are just different layers of trauma.
And how does a parent, like, how would your parents, how would they know? Like, how would they, like, what's your advice to parents? Like, how are they going to know that their child is being bullied at school? Because to your point, kids are really good at hiding things.
Yeah, they are.
So
Yeah.
how's a parent going to provide the support to their child that's just trying to figure out how to live life?
Sure. There is a level of privacy that we afford our kids that is detrimental to their development. When if I was building bombs or guns in the garage, my parents would have known, because my mom never had any hesitation to search my room. We didn't have the phones and stuff like that, but if she was worried about stuff, she'd have picked up the other end of the phone and listened in on the conversation. Like their journals, things like that. There's a certain level of privacy that we think our kids need that they don't. Our third most popular page on our website, firemountainprograms.com, is an article that we wrote in 2014 about how to search a kid's room. To this day, it is the third most popular visited page on our website with organic traffic. Parents don't know how to search a room, and you need to. Parents, well, I don't want to look in their phone. Look in their phone. Erase their phone once a month. You should have the administrative password, not your child. We forget. These kids hit 14 years old and they start sounding like adults and they start doing adult level things. They are not adults, not developmentally, not age appropriate wise. They are not adults. Do not give them a phone. Let them borrow a new phone. Let them lease a phone from you, and you control the administrative password. Now, parents don't like that. It's a lot of work. Do the work. You control the household password. You tell the kid you may have access to the internet unless I see history erased. If the history is erased, you will not have access to the internet. Well, Mom, I have school. I know you have school. So don't do anything illegal or illicit. That we've got to intervene often and early. And if we intervene on the little things, we don't have to intervene on the big things. But it's when these secrets build up. Like, let me give you an example. We know something is going on in our facility 2 weeks before the kids are ready to talk about it because you can feel it start to add up. And so that's when we do a room search. That's when we drug test all the kids. That's when we start asking a little bit more poignant questions of other people in the facility because we know something's going on. We can feel it and we trust our gut, and we train our employees. They say, if you feel it, hold a group. If you sense it, hold a group. Do not wait. Intervene before this blows up into the house going yellow or the house going red, or we go into a lockdown situation. Don't wait. If you think something might be in your kid's room, search it. And if you don't know how, go to my website and find the blog and figure out how. But do it before it gets bad.
So that's along the lines of it's life is easy if you do things the hard way, and hard if you do things the easy way. Because it's a lot easier if a parent out there thinks that something's going on. A lot of times they don't want to search the room. They don't want to. They don't want to dig in. It's easier in the moment, right? It's easier in the moment to just turn the other way.
Yeah. And we don't want to be mad at our kids. We don't want to have that altercation. We don't want to be in conflict of our kids. We want to be loved, but this is one of the things where we play the long game as parents. And I'm going to call out my own generation. I'm going to call out Gen Xers here. And millennials, if you're listening, if you're a millennial parent listening, I'm calling on you too, because you're next. You're the ones who are starting to call my facility because your kid is 11 and 12 years old and they're smoking pot now. And now you're realizing that some of the things that you did when you were a young parent and your children were too young to know any better, now they know better. And now they're starting to exhibit risky behavior. Not bad behavior, not bad, but choices, risky behavior, risky choices. But so to Gen Xers and to millennial parents who are listening, there is something about our compensatory parenting style that is giving these kids way too much freedom. And the only part of the statement that I want you to hear is kids. You are giving children too much freedom. Freedom is important, but not for children. Children need a safe, controlled environment where the parents know what's going on and the parents are intervening early and often. And this is not about you telling the kids what your value system is. And it's not about you reiterating what's right and what's wrong. And we don't tell lies in this house. That is, they know they're 14 years in relationship with you. They know what your values are. It's what you model every day. So if they're not participating in your value system, check your modeling. Check how you model your value system. Oh, you shouldn't smoke pot because it's an escape at life. You say sitting on the couch, binge watching Game of Thrones. Like, you've got to model it. You've got to check the 360 of your behavior, your maladaptive coping strategies, and what you're actually giving your children permission to do.
Being an example, because they're going to follow the lead of their parents.
That's the long game. And we trade the short game. Oh God, I just found this pipe in my kid's room. I don't want him to be mad that I searched his room. He's going to scream at me. She's going to slam the door in my face. She's going to text all her friends that I'm a bad parent. I'm invasive and I search her room. Who cares? Who cares? Since when did a child's opinion of your parenting style matter? You're not abusive, so that's important. You're not abandoning them. In fact, this is you holding your kids closer, which is what they need when they start to flail. They don't know they need it. They don't want it, but it's what they need. And that's the long game as a parent. And Gen Xers and millennial parents, we've got to learn the idea of the long-term investment. The short-term investment is I'll make a YouTube video and get rich. The long-term investment is I'm going to buy some Apple stock and not touch it for 30 years. We have to parent the same way. We have to parent understanding that these things we do now are going to pay off in their 20s. And I'm seeing that with both my kids. My kids' friends didn't always like to come over to the house because if I smelled something, I sent everybody the F home. If I sent something, I went up and I confronted my children and their friends, and it was very uncomfortable. And if a parent called me and said, I think so and so's dealing drugs at school, I called all the parents in that kid's friend set, and I said, everybody go search a room. And parents didn't like me and kids didn't like me, but you know what? My kids trust me now. They can trust me with their feelings. They can trust me with what's going on, and they can trust to have real conversations with me. And they're mid-20s.
Right.
That's what I care about.
That's the long game.
Yeah.
And everybody, you talked a lot about basically accountability. That's what you're talking about. Structure and accountability and support. That's what people need. That's what kids need. That's what people early in recovery need, is accountability, structure, support. And it's just like drug testing, right? Drug testing it's just accountability. And I run sober living homes. And if people don't want to be drug tested, there's a problem. There's something's going on. And that's just a layer of accountability. It's the same thing with like GPS tracking.
Right.
GPS tracking it's just accountability. And if I've got nothing to hide, there's no reason for me not to get drug tested. There's no reason for me to hide my phone. There's no reason for me to turn off my GPS. None of that. Right. And that's what we wanted. It's living a life of honesty and being transparent.
Yeah. What I tell parents is that if there's lying, sneaking, stealing, or cheating, or breaking the law, those are the 5. If any one of those 5 are going on in your house, there's a problem. And I'll have parents ask me, is my kid's social media a problem? Are they lying, stealing, sneaking, cheating, or breaking the law with it? Right. And then there's actually a hidden 6th one, is that when you take it away, do they go into withdrawal? Well, I don't know if they go into withdrawal, but they get mad, they slam the door, they punch a hole in the wall, they call me a bitch. All right. If you were taking away their pills and they did that same thing, would you call it withdrawal? Oh yeah. Well, then it's withdrawal.
Yeah. Same thing. Right. Okay.
Lying, sneaking, stealing, cheating, or breaking the law. That's the agreement you have with your kids. You don't do any of those Fab 5. If those Fab 5, lying, stealing, sneaking, cheating, breaking the law, if that's not happening, we're gold. You can stay out all night. You can be at your friend's house. You can play video games to your own limit. We never limited our son's video game because at some point, he never lied, stole, sneaked around us, cheated, or broke the law with the video games. And when he was like, okay, that's too much, he turned it off and wouldn't turn it back on for a few weeks. He was able to monitor, but he struggled with other stuff. Same with my daughter. There were, so you make it conditional on the Fab 5. As long as those things aren't happening, kiddo, we don't got a problem. The moment one of those things is happening, it's not just that thing is happening. It's also what you're lying, stealing, sneaking, cheating, or breaking the law about that we have to address. And it's not just that it's happening and that you're using some maladaptive coping strategy, but now I got to get underneath and we got to find out why. Why do you feel the need to do any of that stuff? Why do kids feel the need to smoke cigarettes? Haven't they seen the posters that are on their school walls since they're in kindergarten that says, don't smoke, it'll kill you. And then they get to junior high, high school, and they start smoking. Well, we ask the kids in our facility, why do you do it? This is really where parenting takes a turn on its nose, because before it's a lot of, do this as a parent, don't do this as a parent. But the big thing we miss as parents is the why they're doing it. And we call it bad choices. My kid's making bad choices. They made bad choices with friends. No, they didn't. They made brilliant choices. Every single one of them. They made choices that are absolutely getting their needs met. And this is my case in point. Their whole life, they've been told not to smoke. Even parents who smoke say, I hope you don't do this one day when you're my age. It's so bad and I can't quit. And I'm a victim to my own bad behaviors. And the kids are watching it and they hate it. And then they start. Why do they start? Well, we ask the kids, why do you smoke? And they say, well, I get a break. I go outside and I hang with my friends. Listen, Tim, if I'm your therapist and you come to me and you say, man, my job is so stressful. These people in my sober homes, boy, they're just running me through the ringer right now. And there's, blah, blah, blah. And we've had some really good successes. We have some really frustrating, blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, Tim, here's what you need to do. You need to go get a support group. You need to just step outside and you need to take a break from your work. And you know what? I also want you to breathe deeply. Isn't that what you said this morning? That you went out and you exercised, you did your breathing. All right. Both of those things, everything I just said, hey, take a break, go with a support group, go outside and breathe deeply. I just described smoking. Like that is smoking. And it's a quick way to do it. And you're stimulating your brain.
Right.
So now ask kids, why are they making a bad choice? They're making a bad choice because they're getting all their needs met very, very quickly. And they can't get those needs met anywhere else without a true investment of time. And so that's the recovery process, is showing people how to get their needs met in a healthy way. So it's not a bad choice. It's a risky choice. No such thing as bad choices. There's risky choices.
It's the choice. And really what it is it's the solution. Smoking, drinking, Facebook, whatever it is, it's all a solution.
It's never the problem. It's always the solution to the problem, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Solution. Okay, so I kind of cut you off on your story. So you were telling me about acting school, and you started with LSD and hallucinogenics, and that opened up a whole new world. So let's continue talking about your story.
I left California in the early 90s after the Whittier earthquake and the Rodney King riots. It just wasn't. I was with a woman. We wanted to go deeper into the relationship, and I wasn't going to do it in California. And the acting world had the debauchery that you hear about. I'm hateful to say is very true. For all the talent and gorgeousness and incredible storytelling that's out there, there's also an equivalency of debauchery. And I could not live that dual life. Came back to Colorado, decided I wanted to be a cop, became a high-end security officer, got enrolled into take the test to get into the Denver Police Academy, and all the while using marijuana on a daily basis and LSD on a fairly regular monthly basis. I got busted for drugs. One of my dealers, who was also one of the officers that I was supervising at the security company, he and his girlfriend got into a big fight. She called up our bosses and gave up all the names and everything like that. I thought I was going in for a promotion, and I got you're fired, or you can quit, or we're sending you to rehab and you can have your job back. And I said that what I do on my own personal time doesn't affect it. I was carrying a gun in a hospital and I was high, but that didn't affect anybody. And it shouldn't be illegal, blah, 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 blah. Right. So that happens. After a little bit longer, my wife and we have a kid, we move off grid. So I lived off grid before it was cool to live off grid, in a small shack, up by Ward, Colorado, which is where that fire just started. And when I say it's where the fire just started, the starting point of the fire, I found out day before yesterday, is on the property I used to live, which was a small mining shack. And we lived there for a few years. The drug use just got worse. My first wife, she was done. She was done being high every day. She was done being my drug buddy. She was done being a half parent. And she left while I was working a Renaissance festival in Texas. So I came home to nothing. And in mediation of our divorce, I was told by the mediator, the conditions of my parenting were equivalent to my sobriety. And I had to be sober to be a parent and get equal parenting time and rights. And that broke my heart because I wasn't ready to be sober yet. But that began the 2-month rocket to the bottom experience. And on May 21st, 1998, I put my drugs down forever. That was 22 years ago and a few months. I put my drugs down forever on the side of a road, having a very spiritual experience. And I was a very spiritual person, very, very spiritual. had been a minister since 1996. So in 1998, I put everything down and I've never looked back. I've certainly relapsed many times, never with drugs or alcohol, but in behaviors and in attitudes. And, I went from drugs to women and toxic relationships with women to eating issues. And that's when I was like in my a year and a half into 12 step, I went, like I said, I went from drugs and alcohol to toxic relationships to food issues. And at the food issues, I was like, oh shit, it's me. and that's where the real work began, about a year and a half into recovery, and haven't looked back since. Constant and never ending improvement since. I love my sober life. I love what's been built on the back of my sobriety, my relationship with my daughter, the son I got after that, my second wife, my ex-wife, my first wife, and I have a great friendship. I credit her behavior with saving my butt, my sorry father, husband butt, and putting me on the track. So this has been this has been the best trip. And I was up to 11 hits of acid a day at the end of my using years. But this trip that I'm on is the best trip I could ask for.
11 hits of acid per day.
Yeah, it was bad. When I was out in Texas, that's all I had was sheets of acid. And it was bad news, man. I was gone. I wanted to be as far away from my life as possible. And when I told my parents on March 23rd, May 23rd, 1998, the day, I'm May 22nd, 1998 is when I sat down on the couch and I told my parents that I was an addict. My mom was surprised. She was devastated. She knew I was smoking a lot of pot. You just tell, I was 28 years old and I was living in their basement or in the back of my truck. Like, that's not nothing.
Yeah.
They knew it was going on, but like the searching the room, they didn't want to get in there and search. And I don't blame them. But when I told them, and they didn't get to see the level to which that I was hurting myself, they did get to share in the levels of me healing myself. And that I'm really grateful for. The amount of pain I could have put them through versus the amount of pleasure they've had watching me recover and build a life and a marriage and a parenting style. And I'm glad they got to see that. I'm glad they know this about me more than they know that.
Right. You talked about your first year and a half. You talked about the alcoholic behaviors. You weren't drinking, you weren't doing drugs, but you had all these other alcoholic behaviors. And we see that, right? We see that in the 12-step rooms. We see people that get clean and sober, but they've got these other behaviors going on. And I just talked with Tommy Rosen about this last week. He wrote a book about it, and he talks about his first 12 years where, there's nicotine, there's energy drinks, there's objectifying women, there's Facebook, there's so many other behaviors that provide the fix, provide the solution. And then they lead to guilt and shame, right? Which then they have to go back to that behavior again. So how did you realize that you needed to do something different?
Oh, my sponsor, just having a sponsor being like, tell me what's different. Well, I don't smoke pot anymore. I don't drink. I don't do LSD. He's like, yeah. Those are some things that you did that you don't do, but tell me in your life, what's different? I'm like, man, nothing, I'm still the same struggles, the same. And like I say, the guilt and shame are the twin pillars, right? They hold up the roof of addiction. They hold up that thing. And so you have to be able to go in and deal with what you feel guilty about, what you feel ashamed about. What I want parents to know is that you can do a lot of lip service to your children about these things that we come to know in the field of recovery of mental health and addiction. You can look at your 16-year-old kid and you're saying, okay, marijuana is not the problem, but your guilt and shame is. they may not be capable. They might be willing, but they may not be capable of confronting the experience that they've had, the trauma. They may not be capable developmentally of doing the kind of work. This is why I don't recommend that children under the age of 18 go to a 12-step meeting. I don't recommend that. And those rooms saved my life. But what's going on in those rooms has to do with full ego development, which children do not have. We recreated the 12 steps for child psychology in our program. So they do a 12-step group every week. But I'm very hesitant to go to tell a family, yes, your kid should start going to 12-step meetings after they leave rehab. Now, once they hit 18, they need to, but you also need to watch for that 13th step, which you and I know what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And that's a very dangerous thing for young people in addiction. But there's still a developmental issue that we have to address when we're dealing with children. We don't have to address that with adults. Adults can do 90 and 90 and hear all those wonderful cues and those anchor statements and being confronted by, well, that's just your ego talking. Children need their ego. It actually keeps them alive. The ego's the part of you that says, don't drive 90 on an icy road, dumbass. You're gonna die. But when we get older, that ego voice has changed into, don't ask that beautiful person on a date because they might say no, and then you'll feel like hell and want to use, right? That's what happens with the ego. But kids need to develop a healthy ego. They have to. And we can't look at our kids like say, oh, they're so egotistical. They're not. In fact, you're looking at the lack of ego. That's why these risky behaviors are happening, because they don't have the protection voice in place. Unless there's been trauma. And then there are let me put it to you this way. If your child was assaulted by someone who's wearing khaki pants and a red shirt, the brain takes a picture of this moment and freezes this moment in time, and your development stops at that moment in time where the assault took place. Now, 3 years later, your kid walks into a certain big box store where all the employees are wearing khaki pants and red shirts. The brain goes, hey, this matches the photo. We're in danger. Now that's ego, and that's not healthy ego. Mm-hmm. But part of that ego is designed to keep the child safe. So which part do you try to erase? And the problem with 12 steps in children is that we try to erase it all. And you can't do that with children. Children are the PhD of recovery because you're dealing with developmental issues on top of the addiction issues, on top of the trauma issues. When we're adults, we can have a sponsor say, don't be a dumbass. Like, don't use tonight. Call me in the middle of the night. Why does a teen with depression, or an adult with depression, for that matter, not pick up the phone and make the call at the middle of the night? Because they're depressed. And depressed is not an attitude. Depression is not an emotion. It's brain chemistry that's depressed. All right. Depressed is not a feeling. That's the result of depressed brain chemistry, is the feeling that you are feeling or not feeling. So we have to learn the deeper nuances when we're dealing with children. If we're going to get it. Now, therapists know the deeper nuances of human behavior for children and adults. But what parents miss, oh, my child's depressed. Well, I heard exercise is good. It is. So are vitamins and supplements. So is a healthy diet. So is getting outside and getting a lot of vitamin D. So is therapy. So is seeing and getting the right kind of medications in the proper dosage. But the reason why your kid can't take a shower is because the brain chemistry is saying, don't move. I got to save all my energy for breathing and keeping your heart beating. That's depression. Don't move. It's not that your kid doesn't want to do this stuff. And in fact, they feel guilty. And there's our guilt and shame spiral, that they're not going to school, right? But they can't. And that's not about willingness. It's about capability. And until we start to create the right a formula of therapeutic intervention, the willingness won't show up.
So what is your, I mean, you don't recommend that that kids go to a 12-step group. What is your, after they go to treatment, what's your recommendation then? Because that's the recommendation, right? But what should a child do after they leave treatment in adolescent treatment center?
Yeah, the family goes to 12-step meetings together. The family.
Okay.
See, this is the biggest missing component of recovery, is family recovery. We do not believe at Fire Mountain, and we have held this philosophy for now 15 years, no child is broken. There is no such thing as a broken child. There are broken systems. And children's behavior are a result of broken systems. There's a trickle-down trauma that takes place when a system fails. So we're looking at systemic failure, and the child's behavior is the language alerting everybody that the system has failed. Political system, social system, school system, family system, name it, don't care. The family goes into recovery. Dr. Patch Adams was one of my early mentors for a very short amount of time. And what I learned from him very simply was, your grandmother doesn't have Alzheimer's. Your family has Alzheimer's, and everybody in the family needs treatment. There is no trauma that a child can go through that hasn't affected the entire family. Addiction, depression, anxiety, everybody's effective, and everybody needs to get their butts help. And you do it together as a family, because if a child goes to a facility like mine and they recover and they come home to an environment that is still broken systemically, maybe the family can't even see the break in the system, but the system is broken. So a fixed child to a broken system, which do you think is stronger? Which has the stronger nervous system? Because the strongest nervous system will always win, and it will be the broken system. And the child will return to the broken state to fit in the system.
Right.
So you have to treat the family.
It's the environment. It's the family. And we see that. We see that because we have, I mean, even if they're younger, they're younger kids that are 18 to 30, and it's the environment. And so, and I'm sure you never hear this. Oh, well, I'm not the one with the problem. Like, because it's always the family. It's all because that's where that child was raised. That's the environment that the child was raised in. So how do you?
My response to that, when I have had parents say, I'm not the one with the problem. Why do I have to do family therapy? We have the largest family intervention process of any facility we can find. Nobody our parents have to go through phase work. Our parents have to not only do the parenting teens that struggle weekend, that is free for any parent. Any parent can join that process. But not only do our parents have to do that, weekly therapy, the visits programs when we're not in the COVID, our visitation and pass program is massive. We have Sunday dinners where kids are eating dinner with their parents every Sunday at our facility or on Zoom. Like the family intervention process is huge. And I've just named 1/3 of our family process. Yeah. But when I hear a parent say, I'm not the one with the problem, I said, who has the problem? Well, my kid does. Is that your kid? Yeah, then it's your problem. Right? Because if you expect a child to fix the family issues, if you expect a child to fix a problem that is as massive as mental health or addiction and recovery or trauma, if you think that a child has the capacity to fix that, then you really do have a problem. And your problem is denial. Your problem is denial of what has taken place. What science has already said, epigenetics are 12 generations deep. Your child inherited this dragon. Your child is not responsible for this dragon. This is a family dragon, and it's been torching your family's village, your family's kingdom for eternity. And now it's shown up in your child. And if you don't whip out your sword and stand with your child, if you expect your child to confront these issues on their own, then their growth, their evolution will surpass you, and you will be abandoned by your child's well-being. Or you're going to pull your child back. And that's a sickness that parents never, ever, ever want to take a good look at. That's a hard one. You say, if you don't do your work, when your child comes home and they're sober and they're clean and they've got a new language and a new culture of recovery and on, and they come home and you haven't done your work, you will pull them right back into their sickness. And that's on you, not on a child.
You know, as I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm thinking about it, because our program is for adults only. Sure. And it's always 100% of the time recommended that someone does sober living after they go to inpatient treatment.
Yeah.
They go to a different environment, right? An environment that provides accountability, support structure, a family style community, a different community of people that want to be in recovery. And it's almost like that's the shortcut, because it's either they go to sober living, or their entire family or their old environment or their friends or wherever it was that they lived or plan on living, all of those people have to go get treatment. And it's and that's like probably not going to happen, right?
Yeah, and when you're working with adult clients and they go through treatment, they end up at your facility, and they're just like, they get their job, they start getting the life skills going, they're cooking again, and then while they're with you, they get an apartment going. I mean, Tim, this is what the whole program is about. It's like, this is where you learn how to build your life. We're going to step you out of a fully controlled environment to a partially controlled environment. You're going to learn how to control the rest. Then we're going to step you into where you're in control of it all. Now, what makes sense about that is that this 18-plus-year-old walks away with their portion of the problem. Mm-hmm. And they've solved it. They're working with it. They're struggling with it. They're fighting for it. They're getting support. They're going to their 90 and 90. They're doing everything, and their portion of the problem moves with them. And they continually hack away at that portion of the problem until it's so small that 22 years later, the thought comes up to use, and then it goes away just as fast. But you know what the family's left with? The family is left with the problems that they haven't confronted. They've confronted a big one. Johnny doing heroin, Janie doing meth. They've confronted a huge one, and it's brought up a lot of family issues. But when Johnny and Janie move on and they start handling their own shit, the family's still left with whatever dragon was already there. And if the family doesn't deal with it, the sickness continues. The luggage and the legacy gets passed on again. So we don't have that luxury for the kid going home to the family and being able to continually hack away at the problem if the parents aren't confronting it. My books, my workshops, when they're labeled parenting teens that struggle, what I want parents to know is that the focus is not going to be on the struggling teens. It's going to be on the parenting. And that's what I want parents to know. If you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not taking care of your adult relationships, and that could mean your romantic relationships or your adult support team that you have in place, right? You have one, don't you? As an adult, as a parent, where's your support team? Are you trying to do this on your own? Because none of us have ever done it successfully on our own, right? But those are the things you do first: self-care, adult relationship care, then child care. Because if you got those other two things in place, you will do really good on the third level. But we reverse that. And that's where the problems start. Everything gets focused on the child, all their problems, and the problems become huge. And now everybody in the family, in the extended family, knows that your kid's got a problem. And at Thanksgiving, everybody's tiptoeing around your kid, and your kid may not know, but they know, because psychically everybody's on eggshells around them. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. The whole family's got to do recovery. It's okay for grandma to talk to a therapist and actually express what it was like to watch Johnny not be present at the last Thanksgiving dinner because he was high and he had his head down playing video games the whole time. It's important that she talks about it. It's important that everybody says, and here's my version of being high with my head in a video game around the family. This is what I do instead. I get judgy. I drink too much. I F off from the family and go look at porn. I isolate myself at work and I put my head down and I compartmentalize my emotional state and I focus on my work. Like whatever your version, whatever your maladaptive coping strategy is, time to confront it. If your kid's struggling, time to confront it.
Well, it's kind of like in an airplane, right? You got to give yourself the oxygen first. Like if I'm going to be good for anybody, I got to make sure that I'm taking care of myself. I think that's something that's missing. It's again, going back to it, life is easy if you live it the hard way and hard if you live it the easy way. The easy way, the path of least resistance is just to deflect and not and just focus on somebody else, because I don't want to do the hard work. I don't want to work on myself.
Yeah, and I heard this recently, this year, in fact. I heard it said like this, because the oxygen mask example, we've all grown up with, and that's in EMT school they said never run to an accident, right? And that's a great one, because you got to protect yourself and check the environment and make sure safe environment, all type of stuff before you go help anybody else. But the best one I heard was from another parenting coach. She said, "How can you give your children a drink from your empty cup?" I'm like, that's it. Like, what do you need to do to refill your cup as a parent? Your patience, your compassion, your understanding, your prefrontal cortex thinking. Because you're, as a parent, your kid's got anxiety. They're not going to school. Your anxiety's kicked in. As a parent, every time the phone rings, you're like, oh God, what do they do now? Your heart rate goes up. You're stressed out. What are you doing to refill your cup? Drinking and binge watching Game of Thrones does not refill your cup. And getting on Facebook and arguing about the president and the person running against him empties your cup. Cyber cutting is what I've heard that called. Is that we get on Facebook, we argue about politics. It's cyber cutting. It's increasing the depression and the anger. It's not decreasing anything.
Or buying things you don't need on Amazon Prime Day.
I have never ever done that yesterday.
Right. Okay, so what is the message? We've had some really good conversations today. What is? We're coming to the end of the hour. What do you want parents to take away from this message today?
Yeah, nothing happens well without self-care. It is literally my closing statement in every episode of my podcast. It is my tagline. Parents, take care of yourselves first, your adult relationship second, and your children third, because in that way we do our best work with our children. You can't consequence, scold, you can't ground, you can't punish, you can't think, you can't act, you can't do the right thing. If you haven't taken care of yourself, you are struggling with your teen who is struggling. And until you do that thing that helps you not struggle, how can you help your child not struggle? When I say take care of yourselves first, that means, again, are you drinking water? Are you sleeping? Are you eating healthy? Are you exercising? Are you breathing? Are you doing these 5 things consciously? Eating, breathing, sleeping, drinking, and exercising, moving. Are you doing these things? The second thing is your adult relationships, your marriage, your relationships, your boyfriend, girlfriends, your parenting partners, your exes. Your relationship is strained because your child's risky choices. You need to tend to those relationships. And not just the parenting and romantic relationships, but where's your team? Where's your tribe? Who else knows what's going on? Because you and I know, Tim, a family is only as sick as its secrets. And if you kill the secret, you kill the addiction. And so as a parent, what are you doing? Have you been to an Al-Anon meeting? Have you been to a SMART meeting? Have you gone on Facebook and instead of arguing about the effing presidency again, have you Googled moms struggling with teens? Have you Googled dads who don't know what to do? Are you finding a support group where you can go on and go blah with everything that's happening in your household and everybody goes, dude, I gotcha. Mine too. And all of a sudden you're not alone. You got a tribe, you got a clan, you've got somebody you can turn to and say, my kid just blah, blah, blah. What do I do? And you've got 50 things. Some you like, some you don't. But when those 2 things are in place, self-care and adult relationship care, then turn your child. And it could be days. Maybe they got kicked out of school on Monday and you don't deal with it until Thursday. Fine. They're not rats. They got long-term memory.
Yeah.
But by Thursday, you've dealt with your emotional BS. You've gotten rid of the stuff that actually has nothing to do with your kid and everything to do with you. And you can sit down and have a loving poop sandwich conversation. Poop sandwich is when you say, kid, I love you so much. I would die and kill for you. When you snuck out the other night, I was so scared I didn't sleep and I was angry because we broke all the rules and we've made agreements and I've given you things that were conditional upon you following rules in the house. And so here are the consequences. and I love you. That's the poop sandwich. The bread is super yummy and lovey. The stuff in the middle can taste like poop, right? But you got to start and end with those things. That's how you do parenting.
I love it. I love it. I love the you gotta take care of yourself first. And I'm a huge believer in that. I take care of myself. It's the most important thing. It's like I have to come first. I gotta take care of myself. That's number one. Number two, adult relationships. Number three, then you gotta take care of your child. But you've got to take care of the first two first.
And I want to say something really quick. I know we're wrapping up here, but I want to say it feels self-centered, but it's actually becoming centered in yourself. And there's a difference to those two things. The second thing that I have to say is that the long game investment of that is that now my kids are 24 and 25, and you know what their priority is? Self-care.
Yeah.
And that's the payout.
I love it. I love it. Okay, last question, Aaron. Tell me about your morning routine.
My morning routine is up. It's coffee. My exercise was always first thing, but see, I teach martial arts over with the kids in the facility. So I now put that off till later in the day because I put the kids through the ringer. But normally it's, especially in the COVID, it's my pull-ups and push-ups and squats and all that type of stuff right here in my office. And it's self-care. And my coffee, let me be clear, I'm in ketosis. My coffee, healthy coffee. I'm using MCT oil, not that Coffee Mate crap. My coffee gets my brain firing. And if coffee's my only vice, which I believe it is, except for Amazon Prime shopping days, no, then I got a relatively healthy morning routine.
Awesome. Tell me about your coffee. How do you make your coffee?
It's MCT oil, a coconut MCT oil that costs pretty much half my paycheck for a bottle of. And I make it through
Is it the bulletproof coffee or the bulletproof MCT oil?
No, this is a big tube from like Nature Force.
Okay.
It's a vanilla. I'm a vanilla Viking, man. Anything vanilla, I absolutely love. So it's Nature Force. Get there with a little bit of stevia, French vanilla again. French vanilla stevia drops in it, and then a nice Costa Rican or a Mexican blend.
Awesome. Love it. Aaron, thanks again so much. It was really great seeing you, and I will see you at the C4 conference coming up.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Hey, can I give a shout out to where parents can go find more for me?
Please do. Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, it's on. There's two places. My podcast is Beyond Risk and Back, and my Facebook page is Parenting Teens That Struggle. It's a private page where you can come up, and I put a lot of videos, support, and interviews up there. So please join me on those two places: Beyond Risk and Back podcast and Parenting Teens That Struggle Facebook page.
Parenting Teens, and then maybe you can post the link. Parenting Teens That Struggle Facebook group.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. Hope you have a great day and hope you got something out of this today. Ciao.